Hi, I'm Sarah and this is my channel, So Sarah Sewed. Today's video is a chatty sewing and knitting catch-up. I had been intending to make a July plans video, but all of a sudden it's the 15th of July and I haven't done it. So I thought rather than doing that, I would have a chat with you about what I've been working on so far in July and what I'm hoping to do for the rest of July. I just returned to work today after 2 weeks of school holidays. I'm a teacher, so I was lucky enough to have the last 2 weeks off. In the first week of the holidays, I actually went away. I went away with my children and my sister and her family, and I didn't have my sewing machine with me for that week. But I did do a lot of knitting. So the first week in July was pretty much focused on knitting. And then the second week of the holidays, I got a lot more sewing done. So I will start with what I've been sewing recently, and I'll move on to knitting in the second part of the video. If you're not new to my channel, you'll probably already know that I have been running a quilt along with Theresa from Lost My Thread. We are sewing up the free pattern by Cedar Quilt Company. It is the Standing Tall quilt. And I've been working on that a lot this week. So the last 2 weeks, the goal has been to sew up our 4-patch units. So last week and this week, they are the goals. So I've spent a lot of time doing that, and I've also moved a little bit ahead in the project as well. So I will share some pictures of the 4-patch units that I've been making, but you're going to have to wait for the official timeline for me to share the next steps. I'm really loving this project, and I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that I love the fabrics I've chosen so much. The fabrics I'm using are by Tilda. It's the Pie in the Sky collection, and then I've also got some solids from Devonstone that are curated to match that Pie in the Sky collection. So I'm loving the way this is looking, and it's so fun to see those 4 different fabrics coming together while I'm making these 4-patch units. So I'll put some photos in here of that. So that's been my big focus in the second week of the school holidays, as well as continuing with my knitting, which I'll share soon as well. I know I've only got 2 more weeks of July left. This weekend, I'll have my children with me. We'll have lots of activities that we're doing. I'll get a little bit done. The following weekend, I'm actually going away on my school music camp. So for those of you who don't know, I've got 2 children. They're aged 7 and 9, 2 boys, and they spend every second weekend with me and every second weekend with their dad. So the weekends when they're with their dad are very productive weekends in terms of my sewing, and I don't have any of those left this month because of the school music camp. So I'm trying to keep my expectations of what I can achieve low for the rest of the month, and not go overboard with trying to do too many things. But I do have a couple of things I'd like to do. 2 main plans. So following on from the Standing Tall quilt, I have another quilt that I would love to finish. This is the Journey Home quilt by Blooming Poppies, and I actually started this as part of a quilt along years ago. I'd say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe not that long. I can't really remember, but it was a while ago because I was actually hand piecing this. So before I got my sewing machine, I used to hand piece all of my quilts. So it was my relaxing on the couch hobby while I was watching TV, was to hand piece. And this is one of those, I think this is the last one I ever made in this way. It took a long time. This project was actually held up for a couple of months or several months because I lost the last cut up pieces for the final block, and I knew it was somewhere, and it just took me a really long time to find it. But I eventually did find that, and I have got a finished quilt top, and I'll put some photos in because it's a bit hard to hold it up, but here it is here. This one, I used a lot of fabrics that were given to me as a present by one of my sisters a long time ago. They were really treasured fabrics that I wanted to use in a special project, and I think I used those pieces really nicely. So I've used these beautiful tree prints as the center for some of my blocks, and some of them have these little children playing in them. Then I've got other blocks that have children and birds. I just think it's a really beautiful quilt, and I love the fabrics that I've used. But I think the fabrics I've used make this quilt perfect for a child. My children already have quilts that I've made them, and this quilt top has just sort of sat in a drawer for the last however many months since I finished it. And then recently one of my friends had a baby boy, and I have decided that I'm going to give this to her as a present. So my goal for this month is to piece a backing for this quilt. So I've got quite a few scraps left over from making the quilt. So quite, not tiny pieces. So that kind of size, some of the birds, these beautiful flowers. So I thought I would just piece a backing. I thought about buying a large piece of fabric to use, but I thought, wouldn't it be nice to use up these scraps? And it's one of the things I'm trying to do this year, is use what I have a little bit more. And then I did also buy just a few extra complementary colors as well. I think I'm going to use this one as my binding fabric. So that is my next sewing project that I'd like to do, is finishing off that quilt. I might quilt diagonal lines through this one. I haven't decided, but yeah, my first job is to make the backing, and then hopefully I'll get time to quilt and bind it. That might be a big enough project to get me through to the end of July, because that's quite a bit of work. But I do have another sewing project I'd like to get done. And this was actually in my June plans, but I didn't get up to it. So this is my next garment that I'd like to make, and it's the Patina Blouse by Friday Pattern Company. So I won't go into a whole lot of detail because you might have heard me talk about it in my last video anyway. But I've got this beautiful Lady McElroy Cobra Corsage viscose lawn, I think it is. And I'm going to use that to make the Friday Pattern Company Patina Blouse. I've made the Patina Blouse before, but I've made it in a short sleeve version. And this time I'd like to make the long sleeve version. I quite like the look of those billowy sleeves. And I did get some advice on my last video that some people have made this pattern and the sleeves end up a little short. So I might add an inch or two to the sleeves to counteract that. So that's my sewing plans for the next couple of weeks. Now my knitting. I mentioned getting quite a bit of knitting done while I was away in that first week of July, and I have been working on my very first colourwork project. This is something that was on my Make 9 this year, and I was quite scared to start, but I'm actually really enjoying it now, and I'm getting the hang of working with 2 different colour yarns in each row. This is the Instant Crush Pullover by Joji Locatelli. And I'm using mohair that I was lucky enough to win in a competition on Instagram last year. You need 4 different colors to knit this jumper. So one of them you need more of, and then the other 3 not as much. So this sort of golden brown is my main color. And then I've got a gray and a purple and a white. The gray and the purple look quite similar in some lights. Hopefully you can sort of see the pattern in there. And yeah, I've just separated the sleeves and moved on to knitting the rest of the body. I was a little bit nervous that this is going to be too small. I didn't do a gauge swatch, so it'll be my fault if it is too small. But I did try it on yesterday, and I could get it over my head. I could get it. It was fitting, sort of. It's hard to tell when it's on needles and you've got all these, extra yarns everywhere. But I think with just a little bit of ease, if I can get a tiny bit of ease out in the blocking process, then it should fit, even if it's tight. The designer says this can be made to have 0 inches of positive ease. So even if mine ends up being tight, it's kind of the desired effect anyway. I went with the size that I thought would give me 3 to 4 inches of positive ease. And it's lucky I did, because, yeah, it's a little bit small. But I'm going to keep going. I've now got about 10 inches of the body to knit and then some ribbing, and then I get to move on to the sleeves. So I'm just going to hope for the best. Wish me luck. Now, because that knitting project is quite complicated, I'm following a chart. I've got 4 strands of mohair being worked at the same time, using 2 strands of each color. It's not something I can really travel with very easily. It's not the sort of thing you want to have like in the waiting room of somewhere, or it's not the sort of thing you can just pick up easily when you're on the go. But I do like to have a project that is really easy to just be able to pick up and knit wherever I am. And I had my knitting group get together 2 Sundays ago, and I didn't really want to take that color work pattern. So I decided to cast on a new project. I have some beautiful skeins of yarn that one of my sisters gave me for Christmas a couple of years ago. Again, this yarn is from Yarns by the Bay. And the one that I decided to use was a 4-ply fingering skein in blues. I already had it balled up in preparation for a project. I'm not sure when, and I hadn't used it yet. So I decided to look on Ravelry and put in the advanced search a whole lot of parameters. So number 1, I wanted it to be a free pattern. I wanted it to be something I could download immediately. I wanted it to be 1 skein, 4-ply, and I wanted it to have a 5-star rating. And I had so many patterns to choose from, thousands. But this one had a lot of projects, I think around 7,000 projects on Ravelry. So I thought it must be a good one. It's called the Stormy Sky Shawl by Life is Cozy. So it's just a 1 skein shawl, and it's an asymmetrical triangle. So I'll put some photos in of the design, and I'll show you where I've got up to so far. I'm actually not knitting it on the right size needles. I think you needed 5.5mm needles, and I only had 5s, but I figured being a shawl, it wouldn't really matter. It doesn't have to fit, and we'll be fine. So you can see the start I've made. This is the kind of project that's just easy to take everywhere, and it's one of those ones that you just sort of think, oh, just one more row. And at this point, my rows are very short, and so it's easy to make progress, but they'll get longer and longer. And then at the end, there's that option to add some tassels as well on the corners. This will be the sort of thing that I just pick up occasionally when it's not appropriate for me to have my color work project with me. So this might take a little while, but I just wanted to share because it's the other thing that I've got on the go at the moment. So I just wanted to share a little bit of a catch up with you today. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please press the like button. If you're watching and you're not yet subscribed, it would be lovely to have you as a subscriber so that you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. I'll be back soon with another video, but until then, I hope you're well and happy sewing and knitting.